And our special guest every Wednesday, we have Miss Beverly D. Miss Beverly D., are you with us today?
Yes, I am. Greetings,
Good
Ron.
afternoon. Good evening. Good evening. How are you?
I'm doing great.
All right.
I can't wait to hear the information you have for us tonight.
I spent more time trying to get a good title than I did with the information I'm going to bring forth. But it's going to be interesting and exciting, and I hope we get people to understand. And I'm looking for call-ins. I'm looking for the chat room to get hot, and we're going to deal with the whole situation. But first of all, I want to make an announcement that the Pope is coming to America.
Yeah.
September the 23rd, I believe it is. And there's been some special requests for him to come to Detroit. Now, how that's going to develop, I don't know. Some of the heavyweights of the international level that are here, that have connections with the UN and what have you, going back to the water situation in Detroit, they're all using their expertise and power in situations to try and get the Pope to come to Detroit.
Okay.
I have no idea what his agenda is in regards to D.C. and Philadelphia. I think that's where he's scheduled. I don't know what the situation is, but I'm sure it's going to be interesting because they wouldn't give us the real reason why he's showing up.
Oh, no.
And some of the website information is it's going to be pretty, let's call it tattletaling. Is that the word they use? It's going to be telling some very important information is going to get out. I've heard the word, the Pocahontas, the information, what happened. Yes. What happened to her? We're on a streamlined schedule in the United States, and the only reason there is a black male a black person in the White House is because they're trying to put the record straight in their own way. And we have got to wake up and start looking at the president as a president, not as a black savior, Jesus on a white horse coming in here trying to save somebody. He has done more. His record speaks for itself. And most of our people don't care about his record as long as you don't mess with my president, that type of garbage. But, we are so far, we've always been behind. We were chosen to go into this dilemma of slavery because we're so slow to catch on and so undetermined to demand self-determination and demand our freedom and demand that we charge these individuals to be on our land. We've done so much in the wrong direction that it's truly pathetic, the conditions of the so-called black man in America or man of color in America. It's just downright despicable. Don't get me to kicking out some of these words that I don't know anything about. But I'm telling you, it's a mess. And we're going to talk a little bit about it today. I chose that title for the only purpose to try and give it a title where it will give me a broad area to explore, because my purpose has always been, Bev, as you know, to bring it home. Everything that happens in America is black orientated. Everything. And if you can't see it, you're not awake. Some can see it earlier and quicker than others. Some never see it because they're looking in the white areas, trying to be white. But however, I want to get started today. Do you have any announcement that you would like to make in regards to your programs on your network?
Well, on Mondays and Tuesdays at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I have Brother Robert X. And he is really opening our eyes just like you are, but he's doing it on a metaphysical level. He was telling us about this time machine that they have over in Switzerland called CERN. And so we've been kind of dealing with that over the last few weeks. So you bringing it home on one end, and he's bringing it on the other end.
All right. That's well and good. We need every individual that has news to get it out, because we need to wake up, because our only salvation is already in our minds. There's nothing that is man-made that's going to free us. And we got to understand that. We got to get our minds synchronized. We got to start acting like free people. We still have that slave mentality, that slave notion that we have to bow and do all the things that they've taught us through Hollywood and television and TV and stuff like that. All of that madness, we still are in that. And then we turn around and have boogaloo every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday type thing, all through the week. We don't even worry about weekends no more. We just party party time. And it's mad. It's madness. I can't say it any other way. It's truly madness. But anyway, let's start out.
I got a lot.
Go ahead.
I got a lot of response when I was telling people about the flag from last week. I mean, people was like, "Are you serious?" And I mean, it was like shocking news.
Yes. I've done some more exploring in that area, and it's not. It hasn't been told yet. It hasn't come out yet. But there's something very, very, very important about that Confederate flag that cannot be removed without some type of ceremony. Now, let's put it that way. Now, that tells me that flag is representing something that we should know about. And when I bring up the Iroquois Confederation, people look at me like I'm crazy. I say, well, you go look at it yourself. And the first thing the European did with that flag was attached the Nazis and the Southern hillbillies, rebels, to the flag. And when you do your research, it will come up that way. So now you got to start thinking. They are definitely calling it the Iroquois Confederation flag. It's the Iroquois Confederation. However, they say the Nazis and the rebels Federation also. Well, if we know the truth, the Iroquois Confederation was founded in 1548. And the hillbilly wasn't even over here then. He didn't start coming in until 1600. So that ought to tell you that the Confederate flag of the Iroquois was here all the time. And it was told to me that our ancestors gave it to the settlers when they started declaring themselves free from England to get out from under the Magna Carta. So it's going to come out. And I can see where they would make an agreement in 1866. That's where I'm searching right now. In the agreement of 1866, the end of the so-called Civil War, they made an agreement with the Iroquois Confederation that flag would always wave in the southern states. That's where their land was, in the southern states. And that's where they had their slaves, white slaves, in the southern states. Oh, it's like a fairy tale, sisters, like a fairy tale.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Do you have anything else you want to run on me, or let the audience know about?
No, not this time.
Okay. Now, I want to start out by talking about our quote unquote Negro leaders. And I'm coming from the highest, President Obama. I'm coming from the highest and to the lowest, I don't know what you call the lowest, but let's say the rappers, the entertainers, the athletes, that group, that group, and everything in between, which would bring in the newscasters, the announcers, the roving reporters, all of that madness. They are so multiplied into our news media. We see blackies every day. And I was shocked. Let me stop for a minute. I was listening to Dick Gregory. And do you remember Jack Parr on TV of Beverly D?
Yeah. Yes, I do.
And Jack Parr was he was the first late night talk show host.
Right.
And he had a couch. I remember looking at him because he would have black entertainers on there sometimes. But I was listening to Dick Gregory, and Dick Gregory noticed, we're talking about early 50s, late 50s, in that era, when television was just beginning to kick in. They had a couch on the program where the guests would sit down and converse with Jack Parr. And it never dawned on me until this past weekend. I was going to pick up my grandsons in the South, great-grandson, that he didn't allow black people to sit on the couch.
Really?
Now, our brains were so, and then he went into detail. He said, we have been so conditioned to know our place that we never even looked at it from that perspective. And he said it was turned on to him by, it was either Billy Eckstein or one of the old entertainers who was a militant, and he said, the hell with Jack Parr. If I can't sit on the couch, I ain't going on. Well, something happened in the Playboy nightclub where a known entertainer couldn't make it, and they had to rush to get someone, and they brought in Dick Gregory. Mm-hmm. And then when the program was ready to start, they changed it, told Dick he could not be on the show, but they would let him MC because they was afraid of him telling jokes that they didn't like. He didn't want to disrupt it. A lot of heavyweights were at this affair. Well, anyway, it turned out to be a springboard for Dick Gregory because he performed so well that phone calls, he said from 10 phone calls a month, it went to 100 phone calls a day for him to be out there. And Jack Parr called him. He said first time he called, he hung up. He said, I don't talk to a racist, something like that. He told that to the person they called in place of Jack Parr. Well, the person went back and told Jack Parr. Jack Parr called him, and he hung up on Jack Parr. And Jack Parr called him back and said, he thought that he was hanging up because it was a prank call. Cutting a long story short, Dick Gregory told him, if I can't sit on the couch, I ain't coming in. He said that Jack Parr never even thought about sitting the black entertainers down on the couch. Mm-hmm. And he was the first to go in and sit down on the couch. And I thought that was profound in that I watched that show. He would bring on all the black entertainers. He was on every night, so at least once a week he had a black entertainer on. Eartha Kitt and all of that type of stuff. But I never even thought about the fact that that would not let them, or they could not sit on the couch with him. So I'm bringing that up to say that we have been so conditioned. If Dick Gregory said it, you got to know, because that brother is wide awake today. And he was in the dark at the time, and I was sitting there listening with intent as he was explaining. It was such a beautiful interview, and it was by a Detroiter. Joe Madison was interviewing him, and I was listening to it on Sirius Radio. But anyway, I was thinking about it, and I thought about two words that are used against our black, what can we call them, entertainers, or our black Negro leaders, civil rights all-stars, that group. The words are validate and vindicate. Those are the two words that I think of. Now, they are not allowed to validate segregation, racism, Jim Crow. None of the issues of the day are they allowed to validate those issues. They're not even allowed to talk about them. If they get jammed, you've heard it on a Sharpton show. When he gets jammed with a direct call, if he can't shut the call down and move on, he acts like he can't understand what he's talking about. I've never heard of that before. I've heard that tactic used. Armstrong uses that tactic when he gets caught up in a conversation that he can't get out of, where he can't push the button and dump them and to show. And I'm thinking about it. Now, the second word is vindicate. All of us, we're talking about 3% of our race are not allowed to validate, and 97% of our race want vindication. We want to vindicate our position. We want to discuss it, but they're not. We don't have an outlet to do it. That's my point. We don't have an outlet. And if anyone starts talking with an outlet and starts validating some of our situations, they get the word to be cut off by the mainstream media and by the powers to be. So here we are today, no better off than we were in 1963 when Martin Luther King started his civil rights program. Even they are talking about today to do another civil rights program. I think they are calling it anniversary of 63, 70, 80, 90, 103, 13. We're almost talking about 60 to 65 years anniversary of the March on Washington back in 63 with Martin Luther King. And they're going to walk from, where are they coming from? Selma, Alabama. They're going to walk. They're celebrating. Yep, Selma to Montgomery marches in 65. They're going to march this time from Selma all the way to Washington, D.C. And it's supposed to happen this year. I've heard it, but I haven't heard any plans or grassroots on how to do it. But today we're going to talk about just a shorter period of time of Selma to Montgomery marches in 65 to commemorate our shared history of civil rights movement and the nation's continued progress towards racial equality. Yet, decades later, a broken criminal justice system have proven that we still have a long, long way to go in achieving racial equality. Now, remember, when they do statistics, I don't know how you would describe statistics or how you take statistics, but statistics are the biggest root to racism and segregation that I can think of. I was in the food business at one time, and they used to do severe statistical data on food. They still do it today. I was told when I went into my wholesale business back in the 80s, early 80s, that when I was searching for a supplier, which no one wanted to supply me, because at that time, 90% of all the party stores were owned and operated by Black America in the early 80s, coming out of the 70s. And we're talking about all these burnt down stores or buildings. They were occupied by party stores back in the 70s and 80s and 90s. And when you look back on it, I was a part of that because I was set up. When I looked at the situation, I said, well, we need a black supplier to these stores. They only had two major, and three of them in the Detroit area, Abner Wolf, Spartan Stores, and then they had one, I can't call that name, it was over by Ford Hospital, that supplied all the black stores with food. Well, in looking at it, I said, well, I can do that. So I got with a friend, and we set up a wholesale business, and we began to operate. Now, when I went to get my food supply, I had to search around. I ended up in Lima, Ohio, at Scott Ladd's. I don't even know if it's still in business. Scott Ladd. And they were asking me what did I want to do and what was it about. And the more I talked, the more they knew what I was about, because they were telling me that the food that your people eat is in this category. They had a list. They knew exactly how much we ate and what we ate. He told me if a cargo plane of food went to a city of destitute people because of a flood or some catastrophe, if the plane crashed in the Mojave Desert, they could find out exactly where that plane was going by the food that was on it. Mm. They had got that close. Now, you're talking about segregation and racism. You can mold that right into the food we eat. When you go in the supermarkets, you see the same things. When you go out in a white neighborhood to look for pork and beans, it's hard to find. But you go right over here on 7 Mile and whatever at the same Kroger store, they got 2 or 3 shelves of pork and beans, different labels, that type of thing.
Yeah.
So, just bring. Am I right, Beth?
You're absolutely right.
Yeah. So, when you start looking at them doing statistics, they have the money, the manpower, and the education to do some very serious data gathering in order to make projections on what's going to happen. Now, I read an article probably in the mid-'90s. I never will forget it. They were talking about the Denver, Colorado area. They said that they could take a survey of 3-year-olds in that preschool setup. Now, listen to this carefully. I don't know what you call that, startup. I guess you call it startup. I don't know what that school would be other than kindergarten or something. 3- and 4-year-olds. They could give them a test, and they could judge from that test how many prisons they would need upon the graduation of that flock of children.
Yeah,
now, think about that for a while. Think about that. And they were proud of it because they said they never wanted to get caught without having enough facilities of the incarceration in order to deal with it. So now we're looking at some individuals who can go and set up data prior to the birth of the child, and they can dictate at a good rate, probably 65 to 85% of victory rate, how that child's going to turn out from a 3rd grade test. Now, I don't even know what that test could be. Other, I can think of something, how they could do it, but who could think of stuff like that? You dig? Now,
right.
We always look at statistics like the mother having children and the child won't. Malcolm always said it. If the mama was on welfare and the daddy was on welfare, the babies would be on welfare. There's no way of getting around it. If daddy was a crook and there's nobody in the house, no males in the house, all the sons are going to be crooks. Now, they try to fight that type of data to keep it away from you, but they know it's true. We don't even look at it because we're living it. We're so into it, we can't see the forest because of the trees. But they have these data set up, and I want to run some of these statistics by you to see if it will rattle your noggin in any way, and what should we do about it. We got 10 below. We have 10 facts pertaining to the criminal justice system impact on the communities of color. Number 1, while people of color make up about 30% of the United States population, they account for 60% of those in prison. The prison population grew by 700% from 1970 to 2005, a rate that is outpacing crime and population rates. The incarceration rates disproportionately impact men of color. 1 in every 15 African American men and 1 out of every 36 Hispanic men are incarcerated, in comparison to 1 out of every 106 white men. Now, isn't it ironic that none of our so-called, I got to get a better name for them, these civil rights all-stars and all of these Negroes with these cameras and microphones that are woofing every day. You got them singing, you got them dancing, you got them playing basketball and football. None of them go into these areas and try and do something about this. Number 2, according to the Bureau of Justice Statistics, 1 in 3 black men can expect to go to prison in their lifetime. According to the Bureau of Justice Statistics, 1 in 3 black men can expect to go to prison in their lifetime. Individuals of color have a disproportionate number of encounters with law enforcement, indicating that racial profiling continues to be a problem. A report by the Department of Justice found that blacks and Hispanics were approximately 3 times more likely to be searched during a traffic stop than white motorists. African Americans were twice as likely to be arrested and almost 4 times as likely to experience the use of force during encounters with the police. Now, it's no secret that our community hates police officers as a whole. As you know, we got to accept that. I don't like them either. So let's just go from there. Now, ask yourself one question. How is it possible for 2-year-old kids that can walk, today they want to play with your telephone? And when they get your telephone, we talk about 2 years old, they still can't say mama and papa too good, or I got a pot. But they can take that telephone and find a game on that telephone and start playing that daggum game. How can they do that? Nobody asks, nobody questions, nobody says a word. I haven't heard anybody even deal with that. Now, I know how they do it. We're talking back in it had to be in the 60s, mid-60s. I think it was real big. When you go to the movies, you always get hungry for popcorn and pop. And nobody can figure out why they sell so much. I don't never eat popcorn until I go to the movies. Why is that?
Yeah.
Well, they use that brain, that mind control, nanoseconds. They split stuff in your mind. They plant it in your head that you need to get some popcorn and some pop. You can't even see it. It's so fast. It's in the filming. It's in the film itself, and they had a name for it, and I can't think of the name. But they finally said that they was going to outlaw that because it became an issue. But I'm telling you, these telephones are the same. Now we got a situation. I've never seen an Obama phone in the suburbs. I'm not saying they're not there, but I ain't never seen a little tent sitting out there in Livonia talking about come and get a free telephone. Have you ever seen it?
No. Nope.
So now the only ones that's gonna get them phones are the poor and the destitute. Am I right or wrong?
Yep. You're right.
These are the ones that's going to fill up the jails. These are the ones that when they get them phones, them babies, because they're welfare mamas and loser daddies are getting the phone talking out of the side of the neck, trying to act like they're into something. And they've got all these, whatever they got on there. I've never seen one. I don't know how they work, but I am sure they got games on there. Now, Somebody may call in and tell me I'm crazy. But I've seen some kids and not women, but kids, male and female, let's say 21, 22, maybe younger, that have $700 telephones. How in the family do they get them phones? How much you pay? How much your bill? Oh, it's only $125 a month. Wait a minute. Well, how much is the phone? Oh, I had a program. I think it was $700, $900. Oh, brother, please. Now, think about that. So let's go into the mechanisms of that. Who benefits from that? And I'm only on the second statistic just to bring everybody up to snuff. So let's go into that. So here we got the governors of the states crying that their states are broke. The biggest problem they have is housing incarcerated prisoners. So they whine like little girls. They whine. Now, here comes Michael Jordan, Ted Turner, not Jack Parr, that other one that just quit, Johnny Carson. All of these type celebrities make up a pack and send a representative into the state and say, how much it costs for you to incarcerate one prisoner? Oh, it's around $32,000, $33,000, $34,000 per prisoner. We don't have that kind of money. What would you say, Governor, if I can do it for $28,000? Bingo! So now he's saving $5,000 per prisoner. He's gonna make money now. $5,000 per prisoner. He's not letting you know that he's getting a cut price, because half of you out there don't know that when it says correctional facilities, it's private owned. Y'all still talking and laughing about Jackson Cooper Street, a big prison they had over there that they closed down. They had to close it down because it wasn't making any money. Jackson Prison. But now you got facilities, correctional facilities. Those are owned by, you'd be surprised.
Judges.
Yes, judges. Yes, judges. Lawyers. You had one of the richest blacks in Detroit. The family fell out fighting at the funeral of him because they were arguing over Dickerson out in Hamtramck, and that was no other than the Comcast guy. What's his name?
Right.
Comcast. Yeah, the family went to arguing over that. The daughter knew where the money was. Mama didn't know nothing, so the daughter wanted the prison and won't give Mama all the other stuff. Almost called his name.
Well, Don Barton.
Don Barton, yes. The casino man. He had a couple of casinos. All right.
I thought that's what they were arguing over, the casinos. I didn't know he had a correctional facility.
That correction facility bring in more than the casinos, and it's guaranteed. Because here's what happens. When they set up the contract with the state, and I want y'all to follow me on this. When they set up the contract with the state, they make the state agree that they will keep the prison 85% full. Hello? They're going to guarantee that we're going to keep the prison 85% full. Now, think about that. Just think about that. How are they going to guarantee 85%? Unless they got rogue cops and all they're out there to do is lock up people. Hello? And if you lock up a poor person, you ain't got no argument. So they got to be picayune who they lock up. Because when you see his pants around his ass and his hat on backward, lock him up. That's a punk. Lock him up. Put him in there. Ain't nobody going to worry about him. And he can't raise $300 to get out. Okay? So, we're right back. Y'all work with this on paper. 85% of the prisons has to be full or the contract is null and void. Now, we got another situation. You remember when Ain't Too Legit to Quit? what was that brother's name that did that rap? I'm looking at it. He had about 15 or 20 kids on the stage dancing, and he was too legit to quit. That was one of his big songs.
He used to have them big old baggy pants.
Yes. And the songs were clean. The songs were funny. The songs were making, the children were making money. Everything was good. Somebody looked at that and said, wait a minute. We need to keep the prisons full. We don't need that kind of juvenile stuff that they're doing where they're all happy. We got to create some prisoners. So what did they do? They ran him out of business by bringing on another show that did the same thing, but he was doing gangster rap music. Gangster rap music, talking about killing cops, women ain't this, women ain't that, BITs and all that trash that they do. And then
in the chat room, they say MC Hammer.
Say that again. You broke up.
MC Hammer. That's what they say in the
MC
chat.
Hammer. There you go. MC Hammer. I love that brother. He was cool. And he wasn't a business. He grew too fast. And the bottom line was, when they started cutting back on his music, he was too far out there. He was too legit to quit. That's what he was about. So he filed bankruptcy, and it was downhill all the way from there. But my point in bringing him up is they could not get along with that type of music because people were too happy. They was in love with America, United States, if you will. They had to create something. Now, let's go back to the little kids. If they're doing this to the little kids 2 years old, why not put in there that they can show that kid, as he get into these games, that police officers are doing ugly things, like killing their mama, shooting their pet, killing their best comic strip, whatever it may take. I'm not that type of person. I ain't got a PhD. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Now the kid is growing up. He hate a police officer because he's looking at it every day on that damn telephone. So when he gets ready to go into age, he's rebellious. And surely when he gets confronted by a police officer, he's going to have a problem. The police loves it. A lot of them don't realize it, but they already trained that we got to watch out for them kids because they this and they that. So they slap them in jail because the kids talk back to them. All kind of things. Little penny ante stuff. Touch them. Because once you touch a police officer, you know that's assault. You can get time in jail. And then if the mama is a single mother or a mother that don't really care, putting the kids in school to be babysitters, she ain't going to do much about him getting locked up. She ain't got the money to go down there and get him out. She just making ends meet by this couple of jobs that she might be doing. So it's all a three-ring circus. And no one, as the Temptations say, and the band plays off. These damn leaders. And the president. They're all doing the same thing. Validating the bullshit. They validate all of this madness and dare any one of them to even speak on vindication, or they'll be kicked out of the loop. We got people making money today that never seen money. They got these two blackies on TV right now that I wish I could call them names fast enough. J.H. Hughley, J.L. Hughley. He's making more money now than he ever thought about. The Feud guy, the Family Feud. He's making more money than Sugar Stick. Yes. Yeah. And they all are good entertainers. I'm not. We've always had good entertainers, so that ain't no big deal. But my point is, nobody's taking care of the home front. Their children are going to get caught up in the same madness that I'm talking about. And they ain't got to get an Obama phone. They're going to get that $800 phone because mama thinks that's cool because when he calls or she calls, she want to know where her children are. Oh, it's a mess. And the band plays on. Nobody said a damn thing. Let's go to number 3. Students of color face harsh punishment in school, harsher punishment in school than their white peers, leading to a higher number of youth of color incarcerated or dropout. That's just as bad. I got a call this morning and I brought this same question up. That's why I said I had to broaden the title so I can move around and give me some latitude. He told me about a program up in Minnesota where the system took a school and set it up as a black school, but you know they give those beautiful names, underprivileged, blah, 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 for the United States. That type of shit. They brought it in, and then the children, they all was making A's and B's. They were doing wonderful. So I asked him what grades were they. He said, well, he thought it wasn't high school and it wasn't grade school, so it had to be that elementary school. All the kids were doing well. So anytime anyone screams racism in the school system, they bring this school out to tell how good the students are, so quit worrying about it. Meanwhile, all of the other 90% of black students are going to hell in the handbasket. Ain't learning a damn thing. Then when these kids get to the graduation date, they're thrown back into the system. Now think about that. They done raised their consciousness to an educational level of excellence. And then when they reach, I don't know the age, maybe 9 or 10, to get ready for high school, they throw them back in the public schools. But meanwhile, they still have this new crop coming in down at this so-called perfected school. So the question was, when are you going to spread that education throughout the city of Minnesota or St. Paul? They said the funds are not there to do this. It's a mess. And we sit back and tell our children we can be as smart as they are, and we don't know that the statistics is already up against our children, and the money is already out there to set the trap so they are not successful. It's madness. It's madness.
Yep.
Number 4. According to recent data by the Department of Education, African American students are arrested far more often than their white classmates. The data show that 96,000 students were arrested and 242,000 referred to the law enforcement by schools during the years 2009 and 2010. Of these students, blacks and Hispanic students made up 70% of the arrested or referred students. Harsh school punishment, from suspensions to arrest, have led to higher number of youth of color coming into contact with the juvenile system and at an earlier age than whites. Back during graduation and all this madness was going on down in Ferguson, a principal, I don't know what school it was, I think it was I don't know where it was, but the principal announced that there would be no flare-ups or yelling in the ceremonial hall where the students were graduating. When the name was called for this one particular family, the family screamed. Somebody screamed. The next day, the police department with a couple of squad cars went to the house and arrested the whole family. They didn't detain them. They gave them personal bonds and whatever, but they had to go before the judge. They had to miss time at work. They had to miss time at school, and they were fined for breaking the rules of the school. And once an educated child, or not educated child, but once a student gets any type of criminal record in their school system programs, it stays with them all the way through college, everywhere they go. Every time they look at them to be enrolled in a school going forward, they get turned away because of their criminal background. And nobody says a word. The band keeps playing. Band plays on.
That's right.
It's unbelievable. Let's go to number 5. African American youth have higher rates of juvenile incarceration and are more likely to be sentenced to adult prisons. Now, I know you've heard of this young 17-year-old out of New York that was arrested, never charged. They sent him to Rikers Island, which is the worst prison in the United States. They have murderers, everything you can think of go to Rikers Island. He was locked up for 3 years, and 2 of those years he was in solitary confinement because he was trying to kill himself because they wouldn't let him out. Did you hear about that?
No.
Beverly?
No, I didn't hear about that.
When it was put out and this happened this year, within the last 60 days, this happened. And when the community heard about it, they took up a collection to raise his bond. Now listen to this carefully.
Mm-hmm.
They had enough to bond him out. And there still was no charges now. There were never any charges filed. When they went to bond him out, the prosecutor went to the judge and told the judge that they wanted to use a charge, and I don't know what you call it, but here's what he wanted to do. He wanted to keep the boy in prison until they checked out where did that money come from, and it was not drug related. So he stayed in there another week. While this prosecutor supposedly was checking out the money to make sure it wasn't stolen money or whoever gave it up, did they pay taxes on it, all of that type of stuff. Finally, they let him out. He went home, or he got home. He tried suicide twice. They were getting ready to put him into a hospital for treatment, and he he killed himself. About less than 30 days ago, he killed himself.
He did what?
What?
You say less than what?
I didn't hear you, Beth.
No, I didn't hear the last part. What did you say? He killed himself?
Yes. Yes, he did.
Well, you know they have something going on right now with 3 children, 9, 12, and 14, I think it is, that the judge put them in jail because they refused to go visit their daddy. And they got to stay in there till they're 18. I don't know. I just heard it on the radio today. And they've been in jail for 2 weeks. Huh?
I didn't hear anything about that.
Yeah, I just heard it today. They've been in jail for 2 weeks. This their second week.
Is it in the Detroit area or Michigan, or where is this?
I didn't. I heard it on the Frankie Darcell's show.
Yeah.
Just about before I came on the air here, so I don't know any details. I'm gonna have to go look it up and read it.
Yeah. Wow. Well, according to the Sentencing Project, I don't even know what that is. Even though African American juvenile youth are about 16% of the youth population, 37% of their cases are moved to criminal court, and 58% of the African American youth are sent to adult prisons. Mm-hmm. That's crazy. That's madness. And still, the band plays on. The jackleg preachers, the civil rights all-stars, these newscasters, the boulets, the AKAs, they're not allowed to talk about any vindictive reprisals. They're not even allowed to entertain the possibility of freedom. And now they're being watched. They're being censored. And as long as they stay good, they can be on the white side. Even the ones that are successful and go to college, they only come out to be better slaves, better educated, and they never, ever come back to the community and try and build something for the community. The money's better in the suburbs. The living condition is better. They don't want their children to go through what they went through. They can give you all types of reasons to validate their fortune, not misfortune. I would love to call it misfortune. But they can validate why they do what they do. And then they can add to that little bit that I'm going to do ain't going to amount to a hill of beans anyway. Woo! Somebody help us.
Well, didn't you say that the corporation owned the citizen so they can do what they want to do?
Just say that again. Did I say what about the citizen?
That the corporation owns the citizens. So the corporation can do what they want to do.
Yes. I called a radio show this morning. It comes on channel 90. It comes on from 7 to 8. That was the time slot I had when I was on TV. Mm-hmm. And they were talking about statistics. She had some statistics. And unfortunately, when I called in with about 20 minutes left on the show, but when she hit my button, she told me I had 15 minutes because they were going off the air and wanted to invite me to call back tomorrow morning, which I may do that. I'm not sure. But I just told her, I said, those statistics that you are putting out to that young man who's sitting there with you, I said, all of those statistics were set up prior to the birth of our children. That means they're born into a slave camp. And to sit there and try and figure out a way not to go to prison is the damnedest thing you could ever do, because we should be talking about how we can get out of the system completely, how we can leave the system. And that opens the door. That was going to open the door for me to say the birth certificate. But I couldn't, 15 seconds, I had to modify, bootleg, whatever I said, but I did get that point in. The only answer to our freedom is try and get out of United States. Everything that's happened to us, every bad move that's ever made against us is done by United States. And if we don't recognize it, and if we don't start preparing to get out of United States, this is why they tell those Negro leaders, you must never, ever vindicate. You always should validate. Tell them to vote more. Tell them to go to church and pray more. Tell them that the only way is to get a better education. Tell them to cut their grass to make their community look better. All of that trash. You've heard it, Beth.
Yeah.
And we'll get recognized, and I guess the end result.
Ron? Okay, we're going to see if we can get Ron March back. Maybe he hit a mute button or something like that. We're going to see where is the co-host. Ron March. So today he's talking about statistics and how the game is played. And it's really not a game. It's real life. So, but how can you fight something if you don't know what you are fighting? How do you know what weapon to use? How do you know what strategy to use unless you are aware of what you're dealing with? So that's
all right, Bev, I'm back. That was the first time I think we were completely kicked out. I was kicked off the air.
Oh, well, you're back.
But I'm I'm back now. Yes.
Okay.
And I guess I was saying we're getting close to the top of the hour, so we could take a break. But I got a couple of more of these statistics that we need to talk about. So I hope everyone stays on board, and I would love to have some call-ins and whatever you have.
You have one. You have one now. You want to take it now?
Yes, go ahead. We'll take it now.
Area code 773-537.
Peace and love. Peace and love. This is Sayel. Peace to the family.
Peace and love.
Yeah. Peace and love.
Peace and love. Just want to, you most definitely on Super Point, and I hope the audience most definitely take more and more in debt on looking on Pocahontas. Pocahontas is the pivot.
We're breaking up quite a bit. Bev, are you listening? Can you hear him good?
No, his phone just dropped. So we'll pick him up on when we come back off the break.
Okay. Well, the whole communication is bad, if you ask me. You're breaking up also. I don't know how I'm sounding to you. Yes.
Okay, I'm here.
All right.
Can you hear me?
All right. Yes, I can. And thus far, you're not breaking up. But the music is kind of, I don't know what's going on. But anyway, we're talking about statistics and how they can keep us in slavery by projections from statistics. We probably never even thought about it. But our children are doomed before they even get here. If they can take a survey of kindergarten, 3-4-year-olds, and determine how many prisons they're going to need in 12 years, that's remarkable. And they're doing it. And when you figure out, for example, here's a good example. Some people some of our people come up with beautiful ideas, and they put in for a grant. Okay? Well, once they look at the project and they send it to some heavyweights, you're not dealing with fly-by-night audit individuals. You're talking about some CPAs be looking at it. And when they see it's a good idea, they'll say, okay, let's fund them. Now, they know exactly what it's going to take to get the project off the ground. Let's just use a figure, $75,000. You're asking for a grant. You don't know what you don't know. So they give you $65,000. Now, they know from that figure that you're going to be in business and out of business from 1 to 3 years. If you make it to 3 years, you will definitely be destroyed in 5 years. They already have that project laid out. They already know how to do that. So then they'll take your project, put under another guise or another part of the country, and make millions off of your project. I know it sounds ugly, but no one wants you to be free. If you could just get that in your mind and quit thinking that corporations, is going to do something in your favor, you got to be out of your pea-picking mind. They care less about you. And any country that has a black president and they have laws, they have a black president of the country, such as United States of America, the corporation. And yet they have amendments to the Constitution and Supreme Court rulings that says you can never be a citizen of the United States. What does that tell you? What does that tell you? Do you need I don't know what you need to understand that you got a problem. They told Dred Scott he would never be a citizen of the United States in 1857, and then they turned around in 1865 and passed a little bull crap Amendment 13th told you it was a good amendment. You fell for it. You never read. You just took what they gave you and turned around and said in the 13th Amendment, you will never, ever be a citizen. If you are a descendant of if you are of African descent, you will never, ever be a citizen of the United States.
But you shouldn't, if you know better, you shouldn't want to be.
Yeah, but that's advanced study. I think we got a big enough problem letting them know that they can't be.
Okay.
Now, the good part is the advancement. You shouldn't want to be, because they owe us for being on our land. They owe us. And if we learn the program from the New Deal of 1933, we can live here free and live like millionaires. All we need to do is study, read. They know we can't read. That's why they told us. The school system set up for you not to learn how to read. You don't want to read. Don't know how to read. At my age, I know better, but I struggle when I read stuff. I know it. I ain't trying to be no whiz kid. But I know for a fact that the doors are open. We just have to learn where the door is. Non-vindictive, Uncle Remus validating Negroes that we call our leaders, none of them will ever tell you where the door is. Probably half of them don't know themselves because they're getting benefits and privileges. So why should they search for the door? Let's keep going here. We got a couple of more statistics that are of interest. Number 6, as the number of women incarcerated has increased by 800% over the last 3 decades, 30 years. Women of color have been disproportionately represented. While the number of women incarcerated is relatively low, the racial and ethnic disparities are startling. African women are 3 times more likely than white women to be incarcerated, while Hispanic women are 69% more likely than white women to be incarcerated. Number 7, the war on drugs has been waged primarily in communities of color, where people of color are more likely to receive higher offenses. We're still filling up the prisons. Johnny Carson, Michael Jordan are in contracts with states. They own correctional facilities. They demand for it to be X number percent full at all times. Anything over that figure is profit. I'm looking at a picture here of a prison in California, a correctional facility, in California. They're packed in like sardines in bunk beds. They'll take one room and use partitions to make it 2 rooms. And the bunk beds are back to back. Everybody makes money off of the underprivileged or the useless eaters, if you will. And they determine who the useless eaters are because they create the useless eaters. And then you, since your job is going good, you will side with them out of your ignorance that they can find a job if they really want to. They don't want to work. Those are Negroes that can be used to keep the other Negroes down. They will validate the conditions of their own people. Oh, they like to live like that. See, the more you do for them, the more they want you to do. All kinds of negative cliches to validate so they don't feel embarrassed or ashamed over it. Number 7. I got a caller here myself. Beth?
Yeah.
I'm going to take a caller.
Okay, go ahead.
Still got a couple more to go. Area code 763, last 47994. Do you have a question or comment?
Yeah, I'm. Good evening, Bev. Good evening, Brother Ron.
Good evening.
I'm enjoying the show. Everything you've been saying is right on point. I had to look up the term statistical significance because that's part of the process when you start spewing statistics. But the what I'm listening to is I had to close my door. I got a baby in the background. What I'm listening to is so powerful that
What did you look up? I didn't hear that. You looked up something.
Statistical significance, and there's a formula that they use when you do that. I just Googled statistics and it came right up, and I started because everything you've been talking about. I even had a dream about this prison that you was talking about. I had a dream. It's a reoccurring dream, and it ain't like a nightmare. I keep dreaming that I'm in this joint, and I got 45 days to get out, and it's a room just like you just described with these petitions. And I wake up in the morning shaking my head, and I'm going, what the heck's going on? And then I think about what you said. All you got to do is look at Bill Cosby. All the things that's going on with him, whether you agree with that he did it or not, this judge decided that when the information came out about his deposition, sworn deposition, this judge decided that he was a hypocrite, and that's why they let that's why the information got out. They try to tell us that somebody sued and on the Freedom of Information Act. Well, this judge, he knew he didn't have to let that information out about that deposition, but because Bill Cosby,
God,
after he made his money, his line was, "It's all our fault. We need to take responsibility for our actions." All these things that you're talking about, how they know how many prisons to build for when black men are 6 years old. Because if all you got to do is go back and use the statistics of male versus female births. At birth, men outbirth women 2 to 1. By the time that both of those reach the age of 21, there's more women. It's flipped. It's 2 to 1 women. And as you get older, it gets statistically worse. Now, with that knowledge, they know, and statistical significance is the degree of error in the test. So the more people that's what they use. That's what statistical significance is, the degree of error in the test where they got the statistics from. Because every test for every statistic has a error rate. It's like when they tell you there's a plus or minus 5% error rate. Well, that's the statistical significance.
Yes. So they have it already planned before the child is born what they're going to do with the child in a certain day.
Right. So they know plus or minus 5%, and the equation is P is greater than alpha. And that's the equation. And the P is the probability, and alpha is whatever you're testing. And P is the probability of error of the statistic. So they already know the more they test, the more people in a test, the higher the probability of error goes down.
I thought it would be higher.
Go ahead.
I thought it would be the higher the number, the more successful the program would be.
That's how they know. Exactly. The more people they test, then the probability, because if they test 5 and it's 1 in 5, it doesn't have any significance. But if they test 500 and there's 100, now they know, because they can say, well, we test, and if they test 5,000 and there's 500, now every time so they play it, so the game is played on us. Then we have a Bill Cosby come along and sit, and after he done made all his money, and sit and tell us that it's our fault, and every time they needed him, they rolled him right out in front of us. And now we look back at him, and whether you, like I said, whether you want to believe it or not, that's a whole nother story. But all I know is they released his deposition. Somebody gave him 8 prescriptions because he said he had them, and he was passing it around to his buddies and supposedly giving it to women, according to his own words. So what does that say about him stepping up and him buying into everything that was told? And now, here we go. And that's the nature of the destroying process. I mean, they did the same thing with Jesse Jackson when he had the child out of wedlock, who's the same age as I am. They never told it. They knew it. And then when it was ideal to discredit him for whatever reason, or he fell out of grace with the powers that be, there you go. Same thing with the Obama phone. I had never thought of it until you said it. That Obama phone is something else, because they don't give it out to nobody but us.
That's right. That's right. All right, brother, you're right on target.
So I'm listening, y'all. Tonight's show was something else. I've been listening, and I'm gonna dig up some more statistics for you. The same thing with the school program. That's they the same, all that stuff with reading. I never learned history until I got out of school. They never told me I had to. I dodged it all the way through high school and until I got to be an adult, and then history became important to me. Wow. And I could always read.
Yep. All right,
so,
brother.
Keep up the good work, and I'm gonna be listening. I'm having a great time sitting here. It's a little warm up here, but it's all good. Y'all, thanks for taking my call.
Thank you.
All right. All right. All right, Beth.
Ron, I have a call.
All right, go ahead.
Area code 314-761.
Yeah, peace and love. This is Sael again. Did I lose you guys the first time?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, yeah, it cut off for me. I just want to make sure, I want to ask you guys to look up what is called the PLC. That's the Pocahontas Land Corporation that exists today. Of the expansion of the British Empire when they found out how the Indians grew their tobacco better and the coal mine. And they connected the land grants and all that, and they cheated on the land through Pocahontas, which she was married to the highest prince order of the Powhatan Confederation. Yes. So this is how they usurp the land, like they usurp. They're doing the same thing today. You fast forward. That's what the birth certificate is. So they still Pocahontas in the situation. Do you understand? It's the same exact strategy. If you take it back and look at it. That's why they use her name as a statue of all the things that they do, because behind her, that's how they acquired the land through the grants and SG. To what? To affect what? The Confederation. Yep. That's why the Confederation flag is very important, because that is really unto us, which is called a longhouse or a peacemaker. Check that out. That's what the flag really means, peacemaker.
Wow.
And they're doing it totally opposite.
Are you talking about the Confederate flag?
The Confederate flag was meant for peacemaker. When we created in the late 1500s, when the 5 nations got together, and we added another. It was nations that was coming in and out
with the Indian Confederation, agreeing that how we was dealing with the European. Some of us knew that the European was not to be trusted. That's why all the nations did not join or became allies with the Confederation. That's another thing we have to look into.
Wow.
It's deep.
Yes. Okay.
They genocide. They committed genocide on the rest of all the other Indians that didn't want to apply to the contracts.
All right. All right.
I'll say
all right,
that.
brother.
All right.
Okay. Thank
All
you,
right.
caller, for that.
Yep. Okay. Are you cleared out, Bev?
Yes. Yes.
All right. Let's take another statistic. Number 7. The war on drugs has been waged primarily in communities of color, where people of color are more likely to receive higher offenses. According to Human Rights Watch, people of color are no more likely to use or sell illegal drugs than whites, but they have higher rate of arrest. African Americans comprise 14% of regular drug users, but they are 37% of those arrested for drug offenses. From 1980 to 2007, about 1 in 3 of the 25.4 million adults, people of color, arrested for drugs were African Americans. 1 in 3 of the 25.5 million adults arrested for drugs was African American. Number 8. Once convicted, black offenders receive longer sentences compared to white offenders. The United States Sentencing Commission stated that in the federal system, black offenders receive sentences that are 10% higher than white offenders for the same crime. The Sentence Project reports that African Americans are 21% more likely to receive mandatory minimum sentences than white defendants and are 20% more likely to be sentenced to prison. You know, if they know all of these statistics, nobody's talking about them. I guess this would be another chore for our black so-called leaders to try and validate all of this madness, that we should stop smoking drugs, or we should stop stealing, or we should go to school and stay in school. All of those negative, I don't even know what to call them. None of them works. Nobody looks at the situation to determine why is it that we are that way. They just take the end result and say, well, they should have known better. People across the street, they live the same way. They don't rob and steal, that type of thing. We are in a hocus pocus trick bag, is putting it lightly, but we're in a situation that we are just spinning the top, trying to figure out how to get out, or how to survive. Let's put it that way. It's a mess. Number 9.
And the answers is not with our so-called leaders.
Say again?
I say the answers are. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
The answers are not with our so-called leaders, because they're doing what they're being paid to do, to lead us in circles or lead us to nowhere.
Okay, I'm going to ask you. I know you're not trying to validate those individuals.
No, I'm just.
See, this is what I'm trying to stress. We got to be vindictive to those individuals. They're doing nothing but standing in our way to be free, because they're going to validate why they do what they do, and they come up with some good ones. Believe me, that Al Sharpton is almost a professional slime bag that he can get out of, squirm out of all types of revolutions discretionary questions up to and including just hanging up on the individuals. So we got to be careful that we don't validate their positions, that they want to be like that, or they don't know any better. They don't know. Oh, no. I think they know everything.
Better. I know they know better. What I'm saying is that's why they are in the positions that they are in.
Yes, well, they are selected to be in those positions, and they're watched carefully so that they don't vindicate. They must always validate. There you go. All right, I got you. Number 9, voter laws that prohibit people from felony convictions to vote disproportionately impact members of men of color. An estimated 5.3 million Americans are denied the right to vote based on past felon convictions. Felony disenfranchisement is exaggerated by racial disparities in the criminal system, ultimately denying 13% of African American men the right to vote. Felony disenfranchisement policies have led to 11 states denying the right to vote for more than 10% of the African American population. See, they'd be working on these percentages, Bev, these statistics. They know how to, the Republicans, they probably put a lot of money in data so that they can set up these statistical reports to decide what to do and what not to do and when to do it. They don't even campaign anymore in the black community, and yet they say that they're losing elections because they got to start getting people of color to look at them. Nixon showed them a trick on black capitalism when he ran. More black people voted Republican for Nixon than they did for Abraham Lincoln. And there was plenty of money in the black community, if you recall, when Nixon was president. But the movie The Butler validated my position that those that got the money were quickly investigated by the FBI and IRS, and a lot of our people went to jail during the Nixon administration for tax evasion, laundering money, and things of that nature. And that movie, The Butler, they brought it right out in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you saw that movie or not, but they said you recall one of the conversations that Nixon was having with his cabinet, and one of the cabinet members told him that you're making a big mistake by giving them blacks all of that money. And Nixon laughed and said, "Don't worry about it. I turned J. Edgar Hoover over and told him to go after the ones that I give the money to. And if you don't have," he didn't go this far, but I'll say it, "if you don't have charges, make some charges so that they won't be able to be successful." Remember, we had a lot of money in the 70s, but there was nothing nation building ever happened during the 70s. I'm telling you. Okay, number 10, last but not least. Number 10, studies have shown that people of color face disparities in wages following release from prison. Okay. They had that problem before they went to prison. Evidence shows that spending time in prison affects wage trajectories with a disproportionate impact on black men and women. The results show no evidence of racial divergence is in wages. These words are getting me. Prior to the incarceration. However, following release from prison, wages grow at a 25% slower rate for blacks former inmates compared to white ex-convicts. That's a hell of a statistic. A number of states have bans on people with certain convictions working in domestic health service industries such as nursing, child care, and home health care, areas in which many poor women and women of color are disproportionately concentrated. These are some deep statistics, and they only are related to incarceration. What about if they did a survey like this only on education, only on mortgages? You see how they can dictate, they can discriminately make decisions afar and then have a party with black people all around them, and they know they don't care a damn thing about black folks. And you would be the last to even think that that person that gave the party didn't like black people. This is how they get ahead, because there's money in racism. There's money in white supremacy, especially when you have a system like the United States of America, which is a system, a corporation, that was founded on racism. How can you even expect to have freedom? And then we waste all of our time trying to cater, what's that word they use? A tutor, and try and set up programs that will help the poor and the disenfranchised, only for it to die and never grow and never be a successful project. When are we going to start looking at this as a reality and begin to come up with programs how we can get out of the system, how we can educate ourselves that we will not lose anything by getting out of the system because of the birth certificate, because of the straw man, because of the European is not allowed to have real money. He must have play money. And it doesn't matter if you are a foreigner, an alien, a straw man, or a American nationalist. And that's what I'm going to be. And I am a American nationalist. I do not belong to the United States. Now you're going to have questions on that. I like to have some questions. We need to start looking at programs that are going to alleviate the problem, not validate the problem, not figure out a way how we can work with the problem. We need to start working without the problem. We need to have our children come out of the system so those statistics on prisons will not be validated. What do you say about that, Bev?
Well, tell us, what is the difference between an American nationalism and a citizen?
A federal citizen means that you belong to United States. United States itself is a federal corporation. A national would be an individual that's not a part of United States. They told us we are not part of United States. Why do we fight every day to be a part of United States? We are all American nationalists or national. We are American nationals. That's the difference. You do not belong to, you are telling the government that I am not your subject, I am not your slave, I am not a part of your shenanigans. I am sovereign, I live in America, you owe me. You always have to add that. You owe me for being here. When you came in 1600, there were agreements made Now, I know you circumvented the agreements, and that's why Pocahontas keeps coming up, Beverly, because Pocahontas' grandfather, Acapulco, was the biggest landowner in America in 1580s, 90s, and 1600s. He owned more land than there was America. He was the chief of the Powhatan Nation. Powhatan Nation probably had, I don't know, thousands of tribes inside of the Powhatan Nation. One of those tribes.
So basically, what they did was they picked the richest female that was around, because her daddy was he was one of the richest men at that time in that area. So they went and got his daughter.
Yes. They were here to steal the land. And once they found out that our system was matriarch, they knew they had to go through the woman to get the land. And this is why Cass, who was a governor, one of the first governors of Michigan, he's out there right now in the Elmwood Cemetery. His whole, I don't even know what you call it in a cemetery, but his whole plot of land, he's got all of his in-laws in front of him, and he has a huge stone, birthstone or whatever that is. Not birth. It'd have to be.
Tombstone.
Yep, that's somebody's telephone. Think of the wallet. And he got all of his in-laws in front of him on the plot of land in front, out at the Elmwood. And behind him, he buried his wife. Behind this huge stone, they buried his wife. Everything is kept clean up front. Leaves, dirt on all of the burial grounds. But around the back is rubbish, twigs, dirt, everything. There's a plaque back there, and her name is on that plaque. And she's buried behind him. And that was done because there were two governors of Michigan. One was the territorial government that was elected by the people. And then there was the provincial governor that was sent and selected by Washington of Philadelphia. United States sent the governor here. Same way you see it in the cowboy movies. They always talk about the territorial government and then the provincial governor. Yep. And the people that work in the cemetery have no idea why that is like that. We ask them, do you have any write-up on this? No. Do you realize that you never cleaned the backside of his monument? And then they went to telling us it's the ground people and whatever. Mm-hmm. But it's right there. I'm looking at it as I speak to you. I can see it as I look at you. I mean, as I talk today. So they knew that the land was owned by the women. So once they found that out, they began to do things in order to get a hold of the women. They were having children by the women. And I'm not saying that they were the rapists. I'm sure we were doing some raping also. But we had a law against mixing our blood with them. They had no such law. When I did my show, just to give you an example of another law, I gave my show yesterday. I was talking about useless eaters. And it came up that Israel has a religious belief that they can never donate any of their parts to the science of organ science, organisms, whatever you call it. So they have in Israel today, they have, I'll call them hit squads. You can call them whatever you want. They go abroad and steal children and bring them back and harvest them to get organ parts. They're allowed to receive any part that's not Jewish if they want to do an organ. That was in the article itself. I'm just telling you what was there. I had never even thought about anything like that. But then when I read it, I thought about what they said about Trayvon Martin.
That's what I was getting ready to say, yeah.
Trayvon Martin, and they stole all of his parts, so they say. And a couple of more of our young youth. Go ahead.
And they say Dick Cheney has his heart.
Yes.
Because gave him a heart right after that, too.
Yes. Yes. That young boy out of, I'm looking at it, I don't remember the city, but he was killed hanging by a tree. And when they finally got his body, they said that it was full of newspapers. They're taking all the parts out. And that is a big market, black market today, and that is organ parts. So that goes back to statistics. They can figure out where to get those body parts. They also talked about in that article of statistics of black women in college that will sell their eggs for between $275 and $550. They will sell their eggs to these people, and they will, I don't know, freeze the eggs. You know what they do with them, and they can create bodies and birth like that, and then they harvest the parts. And nobody says anything about it because you don't really know or care where the part comes from if you're ready to die.
Right.
So this thing is much bigger than I can even portray to the audience, Bev. And we need to get more serious in what we're doing, which we're letting our so-called leaders get away with murder by validating the conditions that we're in with all this bougie talk and blame and all of that. We need to start standing up and checking them. That means going into churches and checking them damn preachers. And I hate the preacher because he has the biggest audience of outside of the mother. The preacher is the most educational teacher that I can think of that has control of our people outside of the mothers. And whatever the mama put in the child, the preacher gonna turn it around talking about Jesus, trying to go to the happy hunting ground and all that crap. You know what I'm saying? We need to get out of that. Somehow we need to get away from it. So anyway, we're at close to the top of the hour, Bev.
Yes, we are.
My message was good. I hope that we can kind of get something out of it. You know, it gets to be, difficult when you start looking and listening to what our people are saying and talking about. And then we look at stuff like my presentation today and say, damn, we're worse off today than we were way back in the 60s. And you're going to get those bougies that tell you that it's your fault. You could have. You pulled yourself up, Rod. How come these others can't pull themselves up? You know what I mean? You probably have heard that 1,000 times.
Oh yeah, but to me it's clear now because I understand where they get their training from.
Okay.
So they get their training from the corporations. So naturally the corporations are programming them through their miseducation, through the subliminal messages. So, yeah, I could see them reacting that way and thinking that way. You have to come outside the box. Like you said, you have to come outside of the corporation.
Yes, but we have to, you and I have to educate our people to keep challenging these people. Do not let them live as comfortable as they have lived. And when the whitey wants some validation, he knows exactly where to put that microphone when there's a crisis in your city.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they say that, and it's like a orchestrated concert. They all say the same crap, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And to look at what went on down in Charleston, I'm still baffled at that. Dick Gregory has a very nice piece on it on the Blog Talk, I think it's Blog Talk, Underground Railroad. Put in Underground Railroad Dick Gregory, and it's an hour and about 15 minutes. He blasts. He's just as baffled as you and I. How did that happen? How did that Peckerwood sit up there in church with that pistol? I know they saw the pistol. I had to see it. And they're going to talk to him for an hour, and he's going to get up and kill everybody. What kind of madness is that? And,
well,
I don't know. You got to listen to Dick Gregory. He always brings up issues that you don't never think about. But they said the boy was a high school dropout. He didn't know he didn't know Rhodesia from the rug in the front room that he didn't have. And they talking about he had a flag, Rhodesian flag on, and a rebel flag on, and all of that madness. He said the boy couldn't even spell Rhodesia. Don't even know where Rhodesia is.
Was he on legal drugs or illegal drugs?
That I never heard that. I heard that some black guy took his girlfriend away from him. That was one of the reasons that he was mad. They found that out. They also said that the father had bought the pistol for him as a gift. Thought that was he stayed in his bedroom 24/7. They didn't mention him going to school. They said they couldn't get him out of the bedroom. Back there on the computer or whatever.
So that was a sign right there.
Yes.
That was a flag.
Yes.
A red flag.
Yes.
But you just talked about statistics. And you talked about the subliminal messages, and so that's what they're doing. They doing it through drugs, subliminally, food, and I mean they know who to target to do acts like that. You just told us that. Yeah. Yep. So that was done by design because the other caller, the other person last week told us about why he or she think that it was did because of that flag. Yep.
Well, you're right on, Bill. And we got a lot of work to do.
Yeah. Well, we chopping away at it. We getting it done.
All right.
So until next week, peace and love.
All right, man.
Okay,
I
everybody.
appreciate you.
Appreciate you. We will see you next